Good morning to all, and today we are going to see about Satavahana dynasty, how Satavahanas established their rule in India and how they ruled and how they made legacies in India. The important Satavahana rulers were Kanha, Pulamagi, Gautamiputra Satakarni, etc. And the Satavahanas, they were the first rulers, native Indian rulers to mint their own coins in India. So now we are going to see about the other details of the Satavahana dynasty. The learning objectives of the Satavahanas were to explore the achievements of the rulers, administration, society, economic and religious conditions during the rule of the Satavahana dynasty, to identify the mastery over the literary works during the period, to explain the progress made in the field of architecture, to enumerate the cultural developments made by the kings. So now we can start about the introduction, how the Satavahana dynasty, it was an Indian family that according to some interpretations based on the Puranas, they belong to the Andhra Jadi. So Jadi means a tribe or Jadi means a tribe, and was the first Deccanese dynasty to build an empire in Dakshinapada, that is the southern India, a southern region. At the height of their power, the Satavahanas held distant areas of western and central India. On the strength of the Puranic evidences remained in India, the beginnings of the Satavahana ascendancy can be dated back to the 1st century BC, and although some authorities trace the family to the 3rd century BC. So there was some difference of opinion about the year of the Satavahanas, and they emerged as a critical dynasty in the post-Mauryan age. And most of our knowledge about the Satavahanas comes from the inscriptional and numismatic evidences found in the regions like Nasik and Nanagat. Regarding the political history of the Satavahanas, they emerged out of the ruins of the Mauryan Empire. So after the decline of the Mauryan Empire in India, the Satavahanas emerged as the powerful rulers, that too in the first half of the 2nd century BC. So some historians located their year as 2nd century BC and some historians as 3rd century BC. So the Andhra country and the Deccan at large had been under the sway of the Mauryans for many years, and the baton was passed on to the Satavahanas and Chedi rulers of Orissa. So we already know that the dynasty called Chedi, they ruled from Odisha. Regarding the Puranic list that suggested the first king Simuka began to reign about 230 BCE. So first ruler Simuka, he ruled about 230 BC. And the history of any regime or empire is often characterized by its conflicts with other contemporary forces, and in the case of the Satavahanas, the sagas of Sestan empire proved to be a constant threat to them. So the contemporary threat to the Satavahanas were the sagas of Sestan region. The expansion of the saga power at the expense of the Satavahanas probably occurred in the period of 40 to 80 BC. So we already know the saga era, it began from 80 BC, AD, 80 that is the year of the saga. So later Gautamiputra Satakarni is often credited and reviving the fortunes of the Satavahanas after Simuka and after ascending to the throne in 106 BC. He is described as the destroyer of the sagas, Pahalavas and Yavanas. So Gautamiputra Satakarni was a powerful Satavahana emperor, and he destroyed the sagas, Pahalavas and the Yavanas rulers or dynasties. So this was inscribed in the Nasik inscription of Gautami Balashri, and suggested that Satakarni's rule extended from Malwa and Saurashtra in the north to the Krishna in the south, and from Berar in the east to Konkan in the west. Further, Gautamiputra passed on to the throne to his son Vasishtaputra Pulamai or Pulumavi, who ruled from 130 to 159 AD. He was followed by Yajnasri Satakarni, who was the last significant Satavahana ruler. After his reign, the empire gradually declined from for the hitherto unestablished reason. So, there was no reason for the decline of the Satavahana empire. However, it can be summarized that the succeeding monarchs weren't able to maintain their control over the feudatories, who in turn may have gained in strength. The illustrious Satavahana empire came to an end around the mid 3rd century BCE. The Satavahanas were followed by Abhiras in Maharashtra, Kadambas in Mysore, Vagadagas in Deccan, and Bruhat Palayanas in Andhra Pradesh. So, many petty dynasties ruled after the downfall of the Satavahana empire, and later the Vishnu Kundins and the Chalukyas, they emerged and became the dominant in the region, Deccan region, and that had been earlier been in the possession of the Satavahanas. The Satavahanas administration. Now we are going to see about the Satavahana administration. So, how the Satavahanas administered the Deccan region, and Satavahana policy was extensively decentralized policy, as local administration was left largely to feudatories subject to the general control of royal officials. So, the administration of Satavahanas, it was a decentralized administration rather than the centralized administration, and the powers were divided between the center and the state or the local regions. The king was the apex of the administrative hierarchy and considered the guardian of the established social order. So, he was the administrative hierarchy. He was the apex of the administrative hierarchy. So, he was the head of the administration, and other officials, they were under the administration of the king. There followed a feudatory system also during the period of Satavahanas, and the feudatory system was divided into 3 grades. The one is Rajas, who struck coins in their names. So, the Rajas were allowed to struck coins in their own names, and Mahanhojas and the Maharathis. So, these were skilled in warfare. They were skilled in warfare. The Maharajas and Maharathis, they were skilled in warfare and had a lot of clout in the administrative setup. So, they were close to the king, the Mahanhojas and the Maharathis. So, the third grade was Mahasenapati. So, Mahasenapati, he was the last grade of the administrative feudatory system of the administration. So, further, apart from the decentralized administration, the state was divided into agaras, and each agara being governed by a minister called Amatya. So, each province was governed by a minister called Amatya. The Amatya minister was in charge of agaras. The villages came below these administrative divisions and came to be headed by a Gramika. So, the villages were under the control of an officer called Gramika. So, Amatya next comes under the Gramika. Trade was also formed a critical component of the Satavahana economy, and Sopara and Bharuch were important trading outposts during the Satavahana dynasty. The imports included luxuries like wine, cloth, glass and sweet clover, and exports were common: cloth, cornelian muslin and mallow cloth. Mallo means mallu cloth. In local language we can say about mallu tuni and mallu cloth. And each group of specialized traders was organized into a guild. So, there was a system called guild system, where traders were organized into a separate group. Now comes the economy of the Satavahanas. We can see about the economic status that prevailed during the time of Satavahanas. The Satavahanas participated in economic expansion through intensification of agriculture, increased production of other commodities and trade within and beyond the Indian subcontinent. So, they were well versed in trade also, agriculture also, and the production commodities also. So, they increased the production of their commodities also. And during the Satavahana period, several large settlements emerged in the fertile areas, especially along the major rivers. So, they settle along the rivers so that they can easily have trade with the other countries also. The amount of land under agricultural use was also expanded significantly as a result of forest clearance and construction of irrigation reservoirs. The Satavahanas also controlled the entire Indian sea coast also, and as a result they dominated the growing Indian trade with the Roman Empire. So, after the Indian kings, the Satavahanas also had Indian trade with the Roman Empire also. The Periplus of the Erythraean Sea mentions two important Satavahana trade centers, Prasasithana and the Tagara. So, these were the two trade centers which was described in the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea. We already know that Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, it consists of the accounts of trade relationship, maritime trade contacts with the other countries. The author was not known. So, the Prasasthana and the Tagara were the two trade centers prevailed during the Satavahana rulers. And other important urban centers included Kondapur, Banavasi and Madhavpur. These were the urban centers, the three urban centers, Kondapur, Banavasi and Madhavpur. So, now comes the culture and religion of the Satavahanas. How culture developed and religion was patronized during the Satavahana period. The Satavahanas made significant contributions towards the Indian culture at large. So, they were the first Indian kings, as I have mentioned in the intro part, to give royal grants of land and to those practicing Buddhism and Brahmanism. So, they were the first kings to mint coins also. They were the first Indian kings to give royal grants of land to the other religions like Buddhism and Brahmanism. So, historians suggest that initially the Satavahanas were a lower caste, but they consolidated their foothold over the entire Deccan. They cast in stone their Brahmanical credentials. A Nasik inscription states that Gautamiputra Satakarni attributed to himself the title of Kshatriya Darpa Mardana. Kshatriya Darpa Mardana, that means destroyer of the pride of Kshatriyas. So, they destroyed the Kshatriyas and they came over the Kshatriya dynasty and they ruled over, because they were the lower caste. So, they entirely destroyed the Kshatriya dynasty and they came over them. Hala, then comes Kala, a famous Satavahana ruler, is said to have composed a book or treatise called Saptasadi, so which opens a passage in adoration of Shiva. So, Saptasadi, it was a book in adoration of Shiva. Shiva was worshipped very piously during the Satavahana period, and it also refers to temples being constructed for Gauri and Vradas of fire and water. The Satavahanas, they constructed temples for fire and water. So, they worshipped fire and water, Gauri and Vratas. So, it will be an oversimplification to conclude that the Satavahana society was matriarchal or matrilineal. The entire Satavahana dynasty, their lineage was from matriarchal or matrilineal. This was proved from the names of the Satavahana rulers like Gautamiputra Satakarni. So, they had Gautami in their names, behind their names, as they worshipped mother as their family god. So, they are from matriarchal or matrilineal. So, sculptures show women worshipping Buddhist emblems, taking part in assemblies and entertaining guests alongside their husbands. So, regarding the status of women during the period of Satavahanas, they have been far superior than the other dynasties in India. So, the women were worshipped very piously during the Satavahana period. Women were given importance in the Satavahana period than the other dynasties or than the other rulers in India. And many women gave lands to monks, showing that they had considerable agency. So, the women were allowed to donate lands also to the monks, to the religion, etc. So, then regarding to the language, how language was patronized during the period of Satavahanas, and most of the Satavahana inscriptions and coins, legends are in Middle Indo-Aryan language. So, the language implemented during the Satavahana period was the Indo-Aryan language. It is a combination of Indo-Aryan languages. So, this language has been termed as Prakrit by some historians, and however, there was a conflict regarding the language of the Satavahanas. The Satavahanas also used Sanskrit in some political inscriptions, but rarely. So, the major language was Prakrit, it was an Indo-Aryan language, and in some records and some documents and some inscriptions, Sanskrit had been used by the Satavahana rulers. The Satavahanas also issued the bilingual coins featuring Middle Indo-Aryan language on one side and Tamil language on the other side. So, they used two languages on two sides of the coins, one Aryan language and on the other side Tamil language. And regarding the coinage and architecture, so how coinage and architecture had been developed during the Satavahana period. The Satavahanas were the earliest Indian rulers to issue their own coins with portraits of their rulers, starting with the king Gautamiputra Satakarni. So, it is shown in the next slide. A practice derived from the western Satrapas. So, they had the practice of minting the coins with the name Gautamiputra Satakarni. So, it was a practice derived from that of the western Satrapas dynasty, and thousands of lead and copper Satavahana coins have been discovered in the Deccan region. So, many copper and lead coins have been discovered in the Deccan region. As I have mentioned earlier, Satavahanas were the first native Indian kings to mint their own coins in India. So, a few gold and silver coins are also available during the excavations. And architecture, how architecture developed during the period of Satavahanas, and the sculptures of the Amaravati Stupa represented the architectural development of the Satavahana period. And the Buddhist stupas in Amaravati is the best example, and it is 95 feet high. They also constructed a large number of stupas, a large pillar at Goli, Jagipeta, Gantasala, Amaravati, Bhattiprulu and Sri Parvadam. So, these are the places where a large number of stupas have been constructed by the Satavahana rulers. And the inscriptions are the cave paintings in Ajanta, that is in cave 9 and 10th. In cave 9 and 10th, in Ajanta, the paintings were patronized by Satavahanas, and the paintings throughout the caves appear to have started with them. And Ashokan stupas were enlarged during the period of Satavahanas, the earlier bricks and woodworks being replaced with some stone works. What are the works carried out by the Mauryan rulers? It was replaced by the Satavahana rulers in wooden stone works instead of the wooden works. The most famous of these monuments are these stupas, and the most famous among them being the Amaravati stupa and the Nagarjunakonda stupa. So, when we visit the Ajanta caves and Ajanta paintings, we can see the stupas constructed by the Satavahana rulers. And regarding paintings, what were the paintings inscribed or drawn by the Satavahana rulers? And the Satavahana paintings are the earliest surviving specimens, excluding the prehistoric rock art. So, in Satavahana paintings we do not see the prehistoric rock art. So, it is entirely the earliest surviving specimens in India, and they are found to be only at the Ajanta caves. So, no other places we cannot see the paintings of the Satavahana rulers, only in the Ajanta caves, and that too in cave 9 and cave 10. The vagaries of nature and some vandalism have taken a heavy toll of the Ajanta caves. So, the Ajanta paintings have been destroyed by some vandalists and some outer forces, and only a few fragments related to the Satavahanas have survived in caves 9 and 10, and both of which are Chaitya Grihas with stupas. So, the Ajanta caves we can see the Chaitya Grihas and stupas. Now, what are the legacies contributed by the Satavahana rulers in India? The Satavahanas left a rich legacy that was inherited by many other lineages in the ancient and medieval era. So, as evident above, they revived the Vedic Brahmanism and the corresponding rituals like the Ashwamedha Yajna. Their assimilation of faiths, military power and trading prowess makes them one of the most important empires in the history of the Deccan region, and at large that of the Bharatavarsha. So, after the Mauryan Empire, the Satavahanas, they filled the gap of the important dynasties in Bharatavarsha. Thank you. Within this, we can finish the Satavahana dynasty and their legacies formed by them during their administration and during their period. Various Satavahana rulers, they contributed much for the development of the Indian society. Thank you.